I've been posting some videos on loans lately, mostly because we're thinking of buying an RV and they can be pretty expensive. At the end of the day, it is what it is. But I want to shift gears just a bit and talk about budgeting. This is related to getting a loan in some ways because how you budget your money has a lot to do on whether or not you even need a loan. And if so, if you can actually afford one. So what you're saying is, we need to dialogue in order to think outside the box while expanding our bubble so we can effectively deal with a paradigm shift. I've been studying up on how people spend their money and found a rather shocking story that proposed that many of those making high incomes like 150 grand or more are living paycheck to paycheck. If that's true, that's
insane.
So what's going on? How on earth do these high-wage earners get into such dire straits? They're not getting enough bang for their buck. They must uniquely engage strategic convergence in order to do more with less. In short, they tend to spend more when they make more. This means they aren't saving money, and worse yet, they're getting into debt. They essentially feel rich, so they act and spend rich. It seems they have to keep up with the Joneses. They feel like if they don't spend money, they're somehow inferior to their colleagues and counterparts. They must move the goalpost by leveraging synergies, taking a helicopter view of the... Are you speaking English? To put it another way, they fall into the conspicuous consumption trap. They spend money on luxuries to display their wealth and economic power. Their social status becomes their drive, their purpose of existence. And that's
insane.
Now this budgeting problem creeps up on you. It isn't something you plan on doing. But getting back to the drawing board, a thought leader can cascade relevant information and harmonize services within an all-encompassing Internet of Things. This subsumes someone with enough bandwidth and tech savvy to perform analytics within the spectrum of strategic flow, comparatively differentiating a value-added strategic goalpost of transformational change. I don't think you are speaking English. Anyway, if you've worked hard to get where you are, let's say a doctor, for instance, you want to show something for all that hard work, and that's reasonable. We want to reward ourselves for the sacrifices we've made, but think about it. Doctors get out of college with a high debt load, $200,000 or even $300,000, and that's going to weigh them down until paid off. That is pretty much par for the course. They need to bite the bullet in order to get the ball rolling. Quiet. Or maybe you're in business and you get a promotion. Well, you need to look the part. You represent the company in an important position, so you need the new suits, the new car, the new house, the new life. That all costs money, and probably more than your increase in pay justifies. So what happens? With your increase in pay, you have increased your lifestyle, and with it, your debt load. And we do this why? Because we're earning extra money. But guess what? We don't have extra money, we just spent it. And that's how we fool ourselves. In our minds, we have more money, but in reality, if we don't actually have the money because we have stuff and debt instead, then we don't actually have the money. If you get a raise in pay, but you take that raise and buy more things, then you may have more things, but no extra money. And wasn't the point to make more money? The biggest mistake we make is taking the extra money we have and Instead of lowering our debt load with every single paycheck or investing that raise we got each time we get paid, we go and spend the extra money on things. So in essence, we're right back where we started before we got the raise. Now, I'm not saying you can't spend some money on things. I mean, you did get a raise, so that should count for something. But you shouldn't be doing it on every paycheck. You need to think about debt load, emergency funds, and investment savings for your future. What happens if the economy tanks? There goes that job and all the high salary that came with it. Then what? If you don't have an emergency fund to carry you through, how do you pay the bills until you get another job? We think whatever pay we're getting at the moment is how it will always be, and that pay is going to go up as time goes by. I know in my mind, if I get a raise, I quite naturally think I've got more money, and somehow I will always have that income level. The reality is, even if we don't lose our job, or even if we keep our salary at some income level, we can still lose out in the end. There's inflation. In the US, it's something like 3.5% each year. Are you getting at least 3.5% increase in pay every year? If you aren't getting a raise that reflects that increase in cost of living, you are effectively working for less money each and every year. If you get sick or your house is damaged in a flood or something, that's a huge unplanned expense. How do you pay for it without an emergency fund? And then there's age. We can't work forever, and most probably will retire before we die. So the income flow will naturally go down once that happens, and sometimes down to a trickle. Without investments to make up the difference, what are you going to do? Want to hear about another scary report? 2/3 of Americans aren't prepared for retirement and may actually retire close to broke. Do you know the number one reason why they think they can't save? I don't make enough money to save. Have I mentioned that's
insane?
So, what do you do? I've talked about reducing debt load, creating an emergency fund, and putting your earnings into investing before. And these can be important steps to a secure future. But how do you budget in order to do these things? Well, there are a lot of ways to budget, like allocating some amount of your income to debts and another amount to financial goals, or only pay cash for everything, so if you don't have the cash, you can't spend it. Or maybe assigning every single dollar that comes in to a specific expense or an investment that goes out, so you end up with nothing unaccounted for. Now, all of these methods are just fine as far as they go, and you may already use one in your budgeting scheme. And if you do, great. But let's face it, we're all human, and we have wants and needs. Well, we have wants. We tend to see something shiny, and we want it. It's really hard to control our desires, and humans have a lot of them. I like all of these methods of budgeting. But at least for me, I need something that takes into account my human desires. Creating spreadsheets and budget categories and allocations, well, it's difficult. It's like dieting. If it's really complicated, you don't stick with it in the long term, and so it doesn't really work. You can't keep a strict diet during the week, but then sneak donuts on the weekend as a reward, as if you deserve it for all your hard dieting work during the week. And that's the problem. If you're too strict, you won't keep to the diet. It's the same with budgeting. If you don't give yourself a little wiggle room to enjoy life, you won't keep to the budget. and you won't keep to that budget that you've set for yourself. Well, at least I know I won't. So I tend to like the idea of value-based budgeting. This is where you allocate the money coming in to things you care about. That way, the money you're spending gives you something in return, some kind of enjoyment or fulfillment. In other words, you're getting a greater return on your investment and feel positive about your life and goals. Now, don't get me wrong. This can be a bad way to budget if you aren't really looking hard at your life and your goals. Like eating too many donuts. If you spend all your money on the new Jaguar, that may make you happy in the short term, but it also means you haven't paid off your debts or invested in your future. So there are some caveats to this method of budgeting. But if it's done right, you not only start budgeting more wisely, but you really start to understand what you believe your life is all about. You start to see who you are and what makes life worthwhile in your estimation. And that can be a powerful thing. That idea is a game changer. So how do you stop from falling into the trap of just spending on stuff that makes you happy in the short term? There's a couple of things you can do. So, 1, list out your financial priorities. What are the really important things in your life, and how can you spend money on those things instead of something else? These things can be saving money to buy a house, or putting money down to decrease your debt load, or even just going out to dinner with your spouse once in a month. 2, be accountable for your spending. Ask yourself, who benefits from this spending? Just you? Your family? Who's more important? Who loses because of this spending? If you're taking out a loan so you can spend it on a Jaguar, the losers could be you and your family. 3, understand the difference between short-term and long-term benefits. Do you really get a positive return on your investment? Is it only a short-term return that goes away pretty quickly, leaving you right back where you started? Or does it last a long time and fulfill you in the long term? If you buy that Jaguar, it's going to cost more in upkeep and insurance. How's that making you feel now? Could you have spent less on a car and pocketed the rest for investing and have a much better outlook on your future? Something that may make you feel more positive in the long run? 4, deal with your emotions. Are you spending money as an emotional purchase? Are you like me and end up shopping when you're bored or sad? Shopping and spending money is a way to avoid having to deal with these kinds of emotions. Take some time to analyze those feelings and figure out what causes them. Then go and find ways to reduce those causes instead of using spending as a band-aid to cover up those feelings. Find constructive ways to deal with emotions. If you had a bad day at work, go out and meet with friends or family and have a great night out. Yes, you're spending money, but you're also creating bonds in a positive way and bringing others into your life that can help you during the difficult times. And that is a powerful return on your investment. And it can be of great benefit in the long run. 5, find alternatives. Instead of taking a big vacation that only lasts a week or so, how about spending money on things that last all year, like a gym membership or participating in a local event each month? You can take that savings and invest it. Then later on, you'll have even more money for a bigger trip. Instead of buying a big house that fits every single desire, maybe save for a smaller house, fix it up, then sell it for profit and have more money for that bigger house in the future. Or maybe buy a used car, then invest the money you would have spent on that loan for the new car. Later on, you'll have more money to pay cash for the newer car and avoid the debt load. Maybe get last year's model of phone instead of the newest one. They'll be cheaper. And let's face it, do you really need 3 lenses on a phone? The idea of value-based budgeting isn't to only spend on things that are absolutely necessary, nor is it to spend money on just about anything that makes you happy in that short term. It's about realizing what motivates you and makes your life special, something that has worth, and then spending to support the value that is your life. Your life is valuable. How you live it is valuable. Your goals, your dreams, your ideas are all valuable. In my view, this is a very positive way to budget. It not only supports your needs and desires, it makes you realize that your priorities are important. Yes, it's possible to go overboard, but if you're truly honest with yourself, you can make this approach to budgeting work. If you really take a long, hard look at yourself, you not only budget for your needs and desires, but you find out what makes life valuable for you in the process. I know this video wasn't directly related to RVs, but it does get you a step closer to budgeting wisely so you can get an RV without endangering your investments and your future. And I think that is kind of the point, isn't it? Be seeing you. Let's touch base soon. We can schedule a scenario-based roundtable discussion utilizing an infrastructure survey tool to architect a risk-based tiering system, progressively utilizing a low-risk, high-yield application to scale cost effectively. Let's touch base soon. We can schedule a scenario-based roundtable discussion. Too fast. Let's try it again.